Have you ever seen two sides to the same story? Well, we know that three options exist. You have your side, their side, and the truth. Or have you ever seen a viral clip that feels engineered to make you feel angry? Well, that's not accidental. So let's investigate it today on the Fractured Machine Show. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Matt. This is the Fractured Machine Show. Today we'll be talking about if mainstream media has weaponized information. Information is power. It is a tool to help you understand the reality around you. But what happens when that tool falls into the wrong hands? Because through selective stories, selective framing, and selective amplification, propagandized narratives have been woven into our society, dividing us more than any debate on policy ever could. And how do mainstream media outlets turn information into weapons? Why does it worsen societal division? And what are the trends? Let's talk about the current trends. A survey completed in 2025 by Pew or PEW has found that trust in national news has reached a historic low at 56%. With Republicans, that number is 44%. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on about why is it that low for that group of people. And Democrats, on the other hand, they have a little bit higher, but it's still decreasing. Some news agencies don't really know what to do with this. I would say just be truthful again, but that's just me. And from the same survey/study, it found that local news, the trust is a little bit higher, but still at 70%. Is this because people are finding different sources of news, like social media, YouTube, Rumble, shows, podcasts? Is it because people are starting to notice inconsistencies between outlets and with facts? Well, TV is not as popular, and the ones that are watching it consistently on TV are usually people that are retired receptionists or airport or lobby or whatever, hotel lobby, where it just has the news going on at all times. So people have disengaged from mainstream media. And one of the biggest reasons for that is mainstream media polarization, where outlets have clearly chosen one side, one affiliation. And for the people that do actually watch it, they don't watch it necessarily to get differing opinions anymore. They watch it because they agree with it. And I presume there's very little new traffic going to these mainstream media companies and channels. And recall the term on echo chambers. When somebody watches something just because they agree with a political platform, what you're doing with these echo chambers is you're having, surrounding yourself with like minds. It's not healthy. And because of this, we look to online as our main source for news now. And that's majority of people across the board, not just one party. However, with conservatives, they tend to dominate engagements, while conservative stories do. Maybe it's because conservative ideas have become fringe now to talk about in public, and it's not safe to talk about them anymore. You might get in trouble. You might get looked down upon, or maybe society has swung a little bit in that hyper-liberalization seems to have dominated most industry now, and then it creates a pendulum effect. Or maybe rage bait favors conservative content. That to be said, maybe amplification favors right-leaning posts on some platforms. Another big issue that we've been noticing in this landscape is the surge of AI. We've recently seen AI deepfakes, false videos, and bot-fueled narratives, which have muddied the waters. It's no longer clear. And global adversaries may be using this tech against us. You know who you are. So how does the media weaponize information? They have four main objectives. You have selective framing, algorithm amplification, disinformation tactics, and platform changes. So starting off with selective framing, that pretty much means that they're only highlighting the points that are convenient to their narrative, ignoring the entirety of the study, of the fact, of the event. Cherry-picking information to guide your mind, opinions, and emotions. And obviously, these organizations are doing this. Now, whether it be to sell products, but it's probably to guide narratives because their side agrees with that message. With algorithm amplification, extremists thrive where platforms prioritize rage bait. And further to that point, maybe there's some ideas that will get taken down, or the algorithm will cause less traffic, less people to see it or hear it. And what do you do to a society when you prioritize rage bait? I think by doing that is intentional because it's repeat traffic. I don't think anything nowadays sells better than hate. The next is disinfo tactics. With the AI incorporation, deepfakes, bots, paid influencers, more on that in the manipulation video, foreign operatives, it has become very difficult now to differentiate anything between real and fake, where you can look up anything and prove your point, but you could also look up anything and disprove your point. We are being intentionally misguided, maybe by people who want you off the trail, maybe so they can continue to make more money. Because if you have to constantly go to a news agency for news to think that you're finding something that's real, because you feel comfortable and safe there, they agree with your opinions, then you're reliant on them. Who knows, maybe some of the bots might be working for the news agencies. Can bots work for something? And with platform changes, when platforms have become complicit with pushing narratives, that platform in and of itself becomes another echo chamber where people can go with their same political leanings. And an example with this is big tech. They're usually liberal leaning, and therefore those in tech generally favor liberal policy. And because we become so divided and so vicious, and some view it as a culture war, which can be dangerous because you only see what they want you to see. And that's a good segue into politics. Mainstream media outlets now follow non-objective news, which means it's extremely subjective to their political party. Journalism in general has become an arm of the political party because, again, they're soldiers. Now the conservatives, they favor free speech, discourse, and expression. And I think a lot of that comes from the states, where they have their First Amendment rights. Claims of being a conspiracy theorist, having fringe ideas, fake news, and recognizing non-objective journalism that is pushed by mainstream media and big tech has led the majority of conservatives to feel as though their voices aren't being heard, or that their side wasn't being accurately portrayed, accurately reported on, or accurately documented. And they don't think they're being treated fairly. This wouldn't be just with mainstream media causing this. This is also big tech. So certain social medias, certain websites, but this has caused them to begin consuming media elsewhere, which is probably why there is such a difference between the amount of conservatives and the amount of liberals that still have some trust in the news agencies. Now, with the liberal perspective, they do believe that sometimes it's okay to limit conservative voices because they look at it as potentially dangerous or misleading. And they believe that the conservatives attempt to reframe information to stoke fear. Now, something I've noticed is that when it comes to this mainstream media topic, this is one of the first topics I've found where you look at both sides, and depending on which one you favor more will be the one that you obviously agree with. Whereas the other topics that we've talked about, most conservative and liberal platform or agendas or beliefs, they're pretty reasonable, and you can see how they're two sides of the same coin. And just because for the liberal platform, just because you see something as inherently false doesn't necessarily mean that somebody shouldn't be allowed to say it. I think you come up with something a little bit more reasonable. Like the First Amendment exists for a reason in the States. Something that the founding fathers probably didn't anticipate is technology. So obviously there has to be nuances to this idea. I don't think that limiting somebody's ability to talk or write, I don't think that's a winning mentality. Like you look at what's happening in England right now, and they don't have the First Amendment there. Again, as far as I know, people are literally being arrested because of stuff they say online. And it's not always stuff like inherent calls for violence. Sometimes it's just criticizing the current political party that's in power. We can see how bad this can get if the First Amendment is not taken seriously. And I think England is a good example of that, where you have thousands of people jailed in a year because of what they say online. If you've never read 1984, I would definitely recommend it. It's not like this book was written in 1984. It was written in 1949 because George Orwell could see this happening because the book was written shortly after the Nazi regime. It's just a good commentary on what a lot has kind of happened today and what we can see it leading towards. It's sort of interesting because there was a time where Democrats were protecting free speech. Now it seems like with the big tech coming in that they don't really want that, at least for the opposing side. And it makes sense if you silence the other side, then popular ideas won't get into the mainstream. But I mean, we should really look at the common ground here as well, because there is common ground. Like, I mean, just because I don't see a necessarily perfect parallel between the two, there's still common ground. Broadly, both agree that weaponization of information threatens democracy by polarization and erosion of trust. But both do it a little bit. Furthermore, both sides do see that the faith and trust in mainstream media is broken. It was broken by journalists who wanted clicks and traffic rather than accurate and real information. They both believe that echo chambers leads to division and extremists. So the nice part about that commonality is that it recognizes that there's extremists on both ends. So what are the impacts and remedies here? Well, an impact is that it worsens disdain for each other and it encourages tribalism. And I mean, if you're a news agency that's affiliated with a political party, you do want your people to be tribal, follow you blindly. Another thing is that an impact is that it fuels mental health issues and loneliness. You never see your side get represented, or you're seeing the same depressing and toxic sputum given all day, every day by these news anchors that are literally reading off of a teleprompter. Somebody else probably wrote it. Maybe some people write it themselves, but they're just saying words that other people thought of or want to be displayed. When have you ever seen that? And I want to bring up something like actors around the world. They have a script. The script is so that they can give the dialogue appropriately. For news agencies, it seems what they're doing is they're trying to make their investors happy by pushing a certain narrative. Now, I'll give a quick example of this. I'm not going to say exactly what it was. There's a company that invested into a news agency, a big one. And this company at the same time was selling pharmaceuticals, but it was a pharmaceutical that was mandatory in a lot of places. And what was their narrative? What did they say? Safe and effective. Now, why would they say that? Because now we look back and now we know it's not true unless the investors told them to say that. So if you don't understand that these people are puppets, then you yourself are a puppet, or a puppet of a puppet of a puppet. Another impact is that it normalizes extremes and real world harm. People that are radicalized will do a lot of things that somebody who's not radicalized will not do. Some of these things are horrible things. I wish one day that it stops. Not that you believe in a cause so much, but that you're willing to do horrible things so people hear your message. If everybody was reasonable to each other, then these people wouldn't need to exist. But all we could start with is ourselves. And I mean, I guess I'm kind of getting into the remedy, but the remedies. If something happens in the world, don't just focus on one news outlet or one website or one person for all of your information. Consume diverse media. Look around at different perspectives. If you are somebody that looks at a more left-leaning news agency, then watch the right one. See how they report on the same story. See how they say different things. Why would they say different things unless it was orchestrated? Do you really think that one's more correct than the other? Maybe sometimes, but like the reference in the intro, there's 3 sides to every story. You have your side, their side, and the truth. There could be elements of truthfulness in either one of those sides, but nonetheless, it's not the whole truth. Another remedy is to build your media literacy. When you hear something, pause, verify, question both motives and framing. There's that picture that circulated online, I think it was a few years ago, and it was a picture of this car, this beautiful car in this suburban area. Quite beautiful, really. It's a nice car. And you're like, oh, that's a nice car. You have somebody that's standing over to the side of it. You're like, oh, nice wheels. But then it zooms out and you realize that, oh, this was just a toy car on a ledge, perched in a specific way to make you think that it was in fact a real car. So if you zoom in too much to something subjective, you miss information. And that's the real word, misinformation, as in miss space information. So that's why you need to be media literate. Another remedy is ask yourself if how they're portraying it aligns with your core values. Is it reasonable? Is it neutral, unbiased, objective, or purely emotional or logical? Because if it doesn't have both in it, then it's not objective, at least when it comes to political issues. And for the system needs a remedy here. You support transparency. Fact checking should be done by an unbiased journalist, one that's not associated with any of these big networks, one that's just doing it for the love of the game. Because it used to be a very prestigious position. You got to talk to people, leaders, athletes, entertainers all over the world as a journalist. Now it's become high school. It's become gossipy. It's become you just want to get engagement. And they'll keep doing it as long as we continue to consume their media. But like anything, awareness breaks this cycle. We have to reclaim information for what it once was for, connection and not division. Until then, we will all be puppets to the propaganda machine that is the media, at least the mainstream media. But that's it for now, everybody. Thank you for watching the video on how mainstream media weaponized information. If you stay till the end, truly, I really do appreciate it. If you don't mind and if you like the content, please like and subscribe and share, because it's such a new channel. It would really mean a lot and it would help it out huge. If you have any comments about the show, please leave them below, or you can always email the show at thefracturedmachineshow@gmail.com. I may not answer immediately, but I'll answer as soon as I can. And if you agree or disagree, feel free to comment below, but I ask, keep it reasonable. And who knows, maybe your point will be convincing enough that it could change the mind of not just me, but everybody. So until next time, thanks again. Take care.